here are few more header files which we are discussing now. The next one, that is third one, is iostream.h. This is about this header file you are very much familiar, okay, because you are using daily and every time in your C++ programs. That is the header file iostream.h. Come, what is the use of this header file? This header file contains C++ string and input-output routines. C++ string and input-output routines contains C++ string and IO routines. So come, which are the functions which are used for C++ string and IO routines? That is close, open, getLine, read, seekg, seekb, etc. These are some of the functions which comes under iostream.h. Okay, used for C++ string as well as along with C++ string IO routines. So for these things, these functions are used and they comes under the header file iostream.h. Next thing, iomanual.h. So about this file also you are very much familiar because you are using in your programs. iomanual.h. This header file contains functions and macros for IO manipulators. Okay, the manipulations can be done in IO operations. So for that type of functions, here iomanual.h is used for creating parameterized manipulations. Example, you are using end-l. Okay, after a cout statement, you are using end-l, that is end of line statement. So for this type of statement, iomanual.h will be used. And then setw. I have shown you the function setw for the use of setw also. Then for the function reset and so on. For this type of functions, iomanual.h is used. And the last file is math.h. This header file declares prototype for the mathematical functions and error handlers. Okay, it will declare the prototype for mathematical functions as well as error handlers. Come, we shall see which are these things. That is div for division, log finding what? I think for algorithms, this is log 1, log 2, log 3 you are using. Okay, then square root, then tan. Okay, tan comes under trigonometry. The square root is a mathematical function, log is also a mathematical function, then division is also a mathematical function. So for this type of functions, when these functions come, at that time we will use math.h. If we get these functions in a program, we use iostream.h. If we use these type of functions, then we will use iomanual.h. If we get any mathematical function, then we will use math.h. Remember one thing, while writing header files, you should not use the capital letter at the beginning of the header file. You have to use only the small letters at the beginning of header file. So in our today's class, we have discussed the definition of function and the types of functions and their definitions. After that, some different header files. In our next class, we are going to discuss our next topic, that is mathematical library functions, then character and string constants and so on. If you have any doubts, you can ask me personally. Thank you. Come to the next topic, that is different header files. Before going to see which are the different header files, we need to understand what is meant by a header file. So come, we shall see what is a header file. Okay, I think you have already know the header files. Okay, because in previous chapters I had shown you what is meant by an header file. Okay, header file means at the beginning of a program, what the things you are going to write with #include. After #include, the thing which you are going to write, those things are called as header file. That is iostream.h, okay, iomanual.h, conio.h and so on. Okay, previously in the same video I had shown. Okay, those are called as header files. Come, we shall see what is the meaning of that header file. Okay, now Header files are the files containing, okay, these are also files, they are containing standard functions. They are containing standard functions that our program may use. The functions which are contained in header file, those functions can be used by our program. C++ contains many header files. Okay, yes, C++ contains many number of header files. Come, which are the header files contained in C++? Among those files, few are discussed in your chapter. The first one is stdio.h. Okay, see, this header file contains functions and macros to perform standard I/O operations. I/O means input and output operations. Okay, header files contains functions and macros to perform, okay, standard input output operations. Okay, but in C++ basically we will not use stdio.h everywhere. Why? Because when we include the header file iostream.h, okay, when we include the header file iostream.h, at that time stdio.h is automatically included into a program. Okay, whenever we use iostream.h, then at the time stdio.h will be automatically included in the program. Come, we shall see which are the standard input-output functions contained in header file stdio.h. Example, gets and getw, putc, puts, getc, etc. Many are there, but it is not possible to write every function here. So, few functions I have written here. These are some of the standard input-output functions which comes under stdio.h, basically which are included in your syllabus. I am writing only those functions. And next one is string.h. What is meant by string? What is meant by character? Okay, previous classes I had explained you, a character is a single character. Okay, it may contain either number or an alphabet or a symbol, but it should be present in a pair of single quotes. And similarly, a string, it is a sequence of characters, means group of characters, a line of characters, okay, which is encoded or which is present in a pair of double quotes. So this is called as string. Come, what is meant by string.h? This header file declares functions to manipulate strings. Okay, this header file declares functions to manipulate strings, means to work with the strings, and memory manipulation routines. It also works with memory manipulations. So this type of header file we can call it as string.h. Come, we shall see which are the files, which are the functions are included, which are the functions included in string.h. That is strcpy. This means string copy. Then strcmp, string compare. Then strcat, string concatenation. In later we will discuss string strcmp, strcpy and strcat. How we can do string copy, string comparison and string concatenation. Now next thing is the stdlib.h. stdlib means standard library.h. This is standard input output, this is string, this is standard library.h. This header files is used to declare conversion routines. Okay, conversion routine means, and along with the conversion routines, it may work with search or sort routines and other miscellaneous things. Conversion routines. Conversion means converting from one form to other form. Okay, in that type of conversions, okay, we will use the header file, that is stdlib.h. Okay, it contains free, malloc, realloc and etc. These are some of the functions which comes under stdlib.h. dot h. Yes students, hope you have understood the things, and few more header files we are going to discuss now. Dear students, in our today's class we are going to discuss about your next chapter, that is functions. What actually a function means? In previous classes many times I have shown you what is meant by the function and how can we identify a function. But in our today's class we are going to discuss these functions in detail, because you are having the chapter by name functions only. So here, if there is any complex or lengthy program, then that program can be modularized into the sub-program, and those sub-programs can be compiled and tested, and those sub-programs can be called as functions. Come on, let us see what is the definition of a function. Here, a function is a named group of statements. It is a group of statements which is named. Example, EBAC. It is a named group, and if it has a pair of open and closed parentheses, then this is said to be a function. So a function is a named group of statements developed to solve a sub-problem. Okay, this function is developed to solve any sub-problem and returns a value to other function when it is called, and that function will return a value to the other function when the function is called. So this is called as a function. Okay, I have told you how to identify a function. If anything which contains open and closed parentheses followed by anything which is followed by a closed and open parenthesis, then that is said to be a functions. In your programs you have used many type of functions. Okay, the first and foremost, when you start a program you will use the main function. Okay, void main, which you will call. Okay, and next CLR SCR, this is also a function, and finally at the end of the program we will use one more function, that is the getSequence, because all these things are having open and closed parentheses at its end. So this type of statement which is followed by open and closed parenthesis is said to be a function, and we can define this function as a function is a named group of statements, okay, developed to solve a sub-problem, and return a value to other function. Okay, it will return value to the other function, and when it will return, when it is called, at the time it will return a value to the function. So this is actually called as a function. And now we are going to discuss how many types of functions are there. There are basically two types of functions. One is library functions and another one is the user defined function. Okay, now we are going to discuss what is meant by the library function and what is an user defined function. Come, we shall see what is meant by a library function. A standard library, okay, it is a collection of functions. Okay, what type of functions? They are predefined functions. Predefined means which are already given functions. Okay, here if we want to create any function under library functions, we cannot able to create our own function, because these library functions are predefined. Predefined means readily given, earlierly given. Okay, they are defined early. So these type of functions are library functions, and other programming elements, okay, which are accessed through header files. Totally here, library is a collection of predefined functions and other programming elements, then which are accessed through header files. Which are header files? In your programs you are using iostream.h, okay, iostream.h, then conio.h, then iomanic.h, and so on. iomanic.h and so on. Okay, these are all called as the header files. So library functions are used for accessing through the header files. Okay, accessing program elements through the other files. Through the header files. Once again, I am explaining library functions. A standard library is a collection of predefined functions and other programming elements. It is a collection of predefined functions as well as other programming elements which are accessed. What? Predefined functions and programming elements are accessed through the header files because they are readily given. So these type of functions we can call them as library functions. And next, we are going to discuss now about the user defined functions. What is meant by a user defined function? Here, the difference is that library functions are predefined, readily given. You cannot able to create our own function. But user defined functions are those functions which we can create our own functions. That type of functions are called as user defined functions. Who are the users? A person who will use the system, use the computer, he will be called as a user. So here we are the users. So if we give our own function, then that function is called as user defined functions. I have given here EPAC. Okay, this is not at all present in the library function because this function is given by me. So this function, that is EBAC, is called as user defined function. Okay, come we shall see what is the meaning of a user defined function. We can create our own functions. First, at the starting itself it is saying we can create our own functions or sub-programs. It may be function or maybe sub-program to solve a problem. To solve any problem, such functions are normally referred to as user-defined functions. Just like you can create your own functions like EBAC, okay, or PUC, okay, or sentence, and so on. Whatever name you want, you can give to the function, but every function should followed by a pair of open and closed parentheses. Hope you have understood a function and its definition. Then the types of functions, that is library function and user defined function. There is a difference between library function and user defined function. Library functions are readily given by the C++ library. Okay, here we cannot able to define or create any function, but user defined functions are those where we can able to create our own functions. In later topics, we are going to discuss what are the library functions and what are the user defined functions in detail.